Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jerry, and today I'm going to be predicting where every single free agent quarterback is going. The market has been ridiculous right now. We haven't even hit official free agency yet, and the predictions and the odds for where every quarterback is going seems to be just changing every day. So we're going to get into it right in a second here. The one thing I did notice is all of the beautiful mustaches. Look at Kirk with that mustache. So, not at all an influence to my mustache, but I've been wanting to rock a mustache, and here we are. So, it's a perfect time. There's more to come as far as mustaches go, if that was any of your concern in the video. Kirk Cousins. For me, the best fit is for him to go back to Minnesota. I think he's done well in Minnesota. Justin Jefferson wants him back. Could potentially take a little bit less in the contract if Kirk Cousins is there. I know that he said Kirk's his favorite, and they're in contract talks. So I like Kirk as far as let me go over this. The best fit on the left there is who I think is the best fit and where they would be the best fit. The actual is where I believe they are actually going. The size is referencing percentage of how much I feel about the matter. So Vikings is my number one. Number two is the Falcons. I think it makes sense. I think the system would work right for him. His wife's family's from Atlanta, so I see all the fits there. The one thing for him is, Kirk, they've kind of been like this playoff team, a lot of one and dones with the Vikings, and they are getting better. The defense looked so much better under Brian Flores last year, and it took a little bit, but it looked good, and he's coming back. We weren't anticipating on him coming back, so I'd really like to see the Vikings stick with Kirk Cousins. But then Atlanta, they don't seem to me like they're very close. Now, I guess you could say they're a quarterback away because they just haven't really had any great options at quarterback. So I could understand that there. Again, the fit with the family being there, that makes sense. And the Raiders is the last one. I think if you're going to look at Kirk Cousins as like a bridge quarterback, the Raiders are in a decent position to draft a quarterback this year, as well as I thought Aiden O'Connell was pretty promising. So that's what I think for Kirk Cousins. Actually, what we've been seeing is there's been a lot of talk about him going to the Falcons. He's also been saying he doesn't mind coming back to the Vikings. I think it's going to come down to money. I think he would take a little bit less money to go back to Minnesota, but I also think Atlanta seems very enticing. But there was the rumors about checking out schools for his kids, and then there was the one that was debunked about him talking to Kyle Pitts about the number 8. But looking at it, I think it seems like in this moment, Falcons are the favorite. I think it would be best for the Vikings to take him back, but I could see why the Falcons would want to do it. Moving on to the next one here, we got Joe Flacco. Look at that mustache. Now that is a mustache. We need that. I think Joe Flacco probably wins the Super Bowl if he brings that mustache back. But anyway, that was a long time ago. Joe Flacco, best fit for me is the Raiders. Kind of the similar reason to what we just talked about with Kirk on the Raiders is like if you're looking for a bridge quarterback, I think Joe Flacco did enough last year to prove that he could start, and he deserves to start. And the Raiders are that situation where he could start. Their defense was looking good. Antonio Pierce really had the team rocking, and now he's gonna be the guy. You still got a lot of weapons over there, and I think it also Aiden O'Connell. I think he looked okay. For his first time and his first starts. So it would be interesting to see what he would look like sitting a year behind Joe Flacco. Then the Browns. Browns have been rumored to wanting him back, but they're paying Deshaun Watson a lot of money. So why would he want to go to the Browns? I have no idea. I guess the idea would be because he was with them last year and had success, but I just think that would be a very awkward quarterback room unless he's open to being a backup and coming in if Deshaun gets injured again. We have equally down there the Patriots, Commanders, Broncos, and Lions there. I think the Patriots and the Commanders are both, if they draft a guy that they think needs to sit for a year. I think Drake May has been talked about as a guy that would really benefit from sitting for a year. If Jaden Daniels ends up being the guy, he has had a lot of experience, but still a lot more to learn. I think he would also benefit from sitting, and they're both in positions to draft both of them. So as far as a bridge quarterback, I think Joe Flacco was kind of the best like fringe starter that we saw last year. You could make an argument for some other guys, but I think Joe Flacco was up there, and I think he deserves it. Lions was a really scary one that I only put on here when I saw little, rumors of if he's going to be like, if nobody else signs him, he could be a backup. That's scary to me because Jared Goff has been healthy, but if he were to go down, I feel like I think Joe Flacco could you could make an argument, I feel like, that he could be better than Jared Goff. Not to hate it, not a that that's a hate on Jared Goff, but I think Flacco played really well, and I also think he'd play well in that offense. So that's just, again, what I think is the best fit. I've seen a lot for the Browns just going back there, and then the next one that I seem to have seen from the media, which is not a whole lot, is the Raiders. And then I put the Lions, and I even saw the Jets down there as a team to be rumored to possibly being interested with, Rodgers being back this year. Joe Flacco's probably the best replacement that you could come up with as far as a backup quarterback that could fill in and run the offense if Rodgers were to get injured again. So I don't really love the idea of the Jets, but I did see a rumor, so I threw it on there just because it had to mean that there's some sort of a percentage. How about Baker Mayfield, another sweet mustache? All of these mustaches today so far have just been great. I think he's going back to Tampa Bay. We'll talk about the best fit and actual as equal because I think they're kind of equal for me, honestly, from what I've seen. Buccaneers, he played well last year, probably deserving of them that being his team, and I like that. I think he had one of his best seasons last year, and I liked what we saw from him, so I'm perfectly fine with that. I also saw the Vikings as a team potentially being interested, and if you can't get Kirk Cousins, if he moves on to Atlanta, I feel like that's a great spot for him. I think he would probably be able to run the Kevin O'Connell system fairly well. I think it would work out for him. And then same thing with the Patriots. That kind of gets into the bridge situation again, but I did see a rumor that the Patriots could be interested in him, so I wanted to throw them on there. And the more I thought about it, I was like, well, if they want to continue, if they want to start building back up, Baker is one of the few younger quarterbacks that you could target and try to build off of. As far as the offense that they're running, I would assume he would probably be a better fit as a guy that can scramble if he needs to, but not necessarily more mobile. And then I think that all of those reasons go the same for the actual, because I think again, I think the Buccaneers are the favorite. I've heard if the Vikings, if they don't get Kirk, again, I think Baker makes sense. And then the Patriots are in there as, a third option. But it's crazy how many quarterbacks are available. And then with how many there are in the draft, talking about potentially having 6 going in the first round. I mean, within the next 2 or 3 years, the whole starting quarterbacks across the league, or probably half the league, could look completely different. It's crazy. You got your few at the top in, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, a lot of those guys not going anywhere. Jalen Hurts probably not going anywhere. But then, and I don't think of him as a top quarterback, but it just doesn't seem like they would move on from him. But you know what I mean? There's a lot of top quarterbacks in the league that seem to have their team. But after that, it seems to be wide open at this point. So I got Baker Mayfield, best fit back to the Buccaneers, but there is talks of him moving around, so I wanted to include that now. Gardner Minshew that's a man right there. There's nothing else to say about that. But what I would say is I think best fit is the Raiders. I've said Raiders, and I think Broncos are pretty much even for me. I have them, Broncos are a little bit smaller, if you can see on the graphic, but I like the Raiders because I think he could win that job. I think Gardner Minshew, I've said since coming into the league and having the couple good years, he's deserving of being given a chance to start. What did the Colts go, 9-8? So he proved that he could do that in a system that wasn't even supposed to be meant for him. So I think he should get an opportunity to start. I like the idea of Minshew with O'Connell behind again if the other ones don't work out. I think Minshew has the opportunity to make that his team. I also think that could happen with the Broncos. Broncos still having to pay Russ. Russ is obviously not coming back. And there's not a lot of people that are talking about what the Broncos are going to do. So that obviously has to be a topic of conversation. So they're going to need some sort of quarterback. I don't think the move is Jared Stidham moving forward. And I like Gardner Minshew getting an opportunity to make his name for himself on a team. And I think that could be the Broncos. I also think going back to the Colts, he played well when he had to come in. And with Anthony Richardson having the injury problems, it would be valuable to have a guy like that back on the team that's ran the offense for a season and knows what they're doing. And then actual Colts do seem to be the favorite from the research that I've done and from what I've seen. I've seen a rumor to the Giants, so I kind of put them ahead. And I had to put the Broncos and the Raiders on there just because of everything that I explained. They're going to be needy, and then once these quarterback dominoes start falling, which I believe Kirk Cousins will probably be the first one, then the rest will fall from there. And Russell Wilson, obviously, we'll talk about him shortly. I had to tie all the mustaches together, so we're going over the mustaches first. But between the Raiders and the Broncos, I feel like it could be a possibility. I didn't necessarily see too many rumors on there, but I think he could end up on one of those teams. So obviously had to include him. And moving on, there he is. Let Russ cook. I think the only way he could cook would be with Michael's secret stuff there. So had to give him that. Russell Wilson, I think the best fit is probably the Steelers. They're still looking to win. And, he's probably the most veteran quarterback that would fit that Arthur Smith system. And, they were talking just a few days ago about how he might just, the Steelers might just roll with Kenny Pickett, which I thought was hilarious. That didn't make any sense to me. And then they talked about seeing him in Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh. So I don't know what the deal is with that. I think the Steelers are probably the best fit. I think they have one of the most complete teams of the whole, like all the teams in the offseason right now. And then the Raiders, kind of the same thing I've been talking about, opportunity to be a bridge quarterback. I don't think he really fits because of the whole money thing. You would think, everybody's talking about how you don't have to pay Russ a lot of money to go to whatever team it ends up being because he's getting paid by the Broncos. But if the Raiders wanted a cheap quarterback, and if they draft a quarterback, or if they would want Aiden O'Connell to learn from, I don't know if you want to learn from Russ, but either way, whatever that may be, I think he's a bridge quarterback, so you have to leave that as an option. And then I almost put the Vikings ahead of the Raiders, but I think the Vikings make sense. They've been rumored to be a team to take J.J. McCarthy. I think he could maybe learn something from them, but the Vikings are in a really weird spot where they're pretty close, but it's not enough. So you could get a guy like Russ that's probably going to help you win if you can't re-sign Kirk and at least give you an opportunity. But you can also have an inexperienced quarterback like J.J. McCarthy sit and then learn and fill in when needed. And then kind of the same reasoning for all the actual teams, honestly. And then I just threw the Giants in there because he apparently did an interview at the Giants, which did not make any sense to me. I don't know. I know they want to move on from Daniel Jones, but I do not see the reasoning for going to the Giants. I don't love that. I don't think he has an opportunity to win there, and they need a lot more help. I guess if you are able to sign him, then they have like the 6th pick, so they're almost guaranteed to get a wide receiver. You could start a combo there. I guess you could have a little revival. But I just don't. I think that's kind of a smokescreen. I did put them all as equal under the actual category because I just could not tell. It seems to change every day for what team he's going to move to. So again, I think the best fit for Russell Wilson is probably the Steelers, and that's actually where he's kind of being favored to go right now. Now, Justin Fields didn't really have any cool pictures, unfortunately, or funny pictures, so he had to go with a high school photo. And you can see this is kind of a jumbled mess here because there's just all over the place. There's so many different places he could go. So I think the best fit for him is the Steelers. And I actually think he's a better fit than Russell Wilson personally because I think he could be the quarterback moving forward. He's got George Pickens, who was a friend of his. I think it was from some training camps early on in college that he did with them, them being George Pickens. But the Steelers have a great defense. They do have a bit of a run game, and they have Arthur Smith, who has an offense that is designed for a running quarterback. So I think Justin Fields, if he's going to have a career revival, I think the Steelers are the best place. Now, unfortunately, the Steelers said they are interested in him. I was curious if some teams were doing that to see if that could lower the trade value. So that's why I do still have him in the actual like section over there. But just hearing all the news that they might not be interested at all, had them move down the actual list. Now the Saints. I think the Saints are another good one where they're trying to kind of get back on their feet, not in a great division. He'd be playing against his rival, the Falcons, twice, which I think was just kind of interesting. But you got Chris Olave over there. So I think pairing him up with one of his guys, had success in college, needs a revival. Saints defense did fall off a little bit last year, but they still have, some good pieces. And I feel like I went into last season thinking they could win the division. And for whatever reason, it didn't end up happening. And they just kind of fell off. So I think he makes sense over there as well. Falcons, it's kind of the same as Kirk Cousins as far as your hometown. I don't really see them as being a good fit because they just hired Raheem Morris to be the head coach. He's a defensive minded coach. And then I'm drawing a blank on who their offensive coordinator is, but I believe it was like a quarterback coach or an offensive coordinator for the Rams, which means it's kind of the similar situation that he was with the Bears with Luke Getsy, where Luke Getsy came from Green Bay, where his whole resume was basically just, I'm Aaron Rodgers' quarterback coach after Aaron Rodgers already won a Super Bowl and some MVPs. So it's kind of the same thing with you're getting a Rams guy who just so happened to be Matt Stafford's quarterback coach, and he's now the offensive coordinator. I think that could be a mess for him. I like the pieces that they have in Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. Like, that's all fun, but you have that over there in the Steelers too. I didn't even mention. So you got George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth. So all those guys, I think, for the Steelers makes them the best fit. I think the Falcons have good pieces. They do need a quarterback. They're also in a position where they could draft one. So it's interesting to see what happens there. I would assume with their pick, they probably bolster the offensive line, which I'm sure Fields would also appreciate. So I see why they're in it. I just don't like the coaching situation, and that's why I have them as my third. Patriots I've seen as rumored. It's kind of as I'm going down, these players are having a lot more teams just because it kind of depends on how the dominoes fall. So I think of the Patriots and the Vikings. I guess the Patriots are different in that the Patriots do need a quarterback. And if Gerard Mayo decides that he really likes Justin Fields and wants that guy on his team, then I could see why he would want to go for him. And I think might fit the scheme. I don't really know exactly how that scheme is going to be, but I think they fall somewhere on the list. And then the Vikings, I don't really see them as being a target, just being in the division. I think it could happen if Ryan Poles gets desperate, but I just don't see that happening. I think it would be very odd if he was traded in the division, and it would make for a very interesting few years moving forward, especially if he has a lot of success there. Broncos are in there, again, just kind of another team that with how the quarterback dominoes are going to fall, he might end up needing to be the guy somewhere. And if the Broncos haven't got anybody and are willing to trade a pick, then obviously the Broncos would be interested. And I've seen the Jets too, just kind of the Jets wanting to take back their Zach Wilson pick. I saw the rumor. I don't really believe it, but obviously it could happen. So I wanted to at least put him on the best fit list, just because at the end of the day they could go there. I haven't really read anything as far as them being a potential target, but I do see that if they're not happy with their quarterbacks, they think Justin Fields needs to sit for a year. Behind Rodgers would be interesting going against him and in the NFC North, but it could happen. And then as far as the actual goes, we kind of talked about most of the reasons already. Giants are on there because they might be looking for a quarterback. I kept all of them even in size because we really don't know what's going to happen. We kind of have to wait for the Kirk Cousins thing to fall. If Kirk goes back to Minnesota, I think he instantly becomes the favorite to Atlanta. But then I think the Saints, I actually think you could put the Saints ahead of the Patriots. I just haven't really seen anything on it. I think the Saints would be a really good fit for them. And then you got the Vikings. Again, I don't see that being possible just because it's in the division. But being that that's one of the teams rumored, they had to be on there. And that's kind of the same goes for the Giants. And then the Steelers did say that they weren't interested in him. But again, I think that could be a smokescreen to try to lower the value. And then the last one for actual is if they really somehow can't get value and there's just too many quarterbacks and nobody thinks that he's got a team, I could see him going back to the Bears, but I have no idea how that would work because having him and Caleb Williams in the locker room, I don't think would work. So I threw him on there because I want to say it's not out of the question, but I do not see that working at all, if I'm being honest. But Justin Fields could be back on the Bears. Now, Jacoby Brissett didn't have any fun pictures in college or the NFL, so we had to go back to high school with him as well for the Panthers. A lot of rumors of him to the Patriots. It seems like people are already deciding that, like, yeah, he's going to be on the Patriots. So I think it makes sense, another bridge guy. Like, if they're not sure what they want to do and they just want to have a quarterback fill in to sit, fill in so a rookie can sit, it would make sense. And then again, Raiders, Broncos, Commanders are all just kind of on there because I think with how the quarterback dominoes fall, it could end up there. I guess I could have put the Giants on here too if they really are that much out on Daniel Jones, but I have a lot of faith that he is going to go to the Patriots, and I actually do really like that fit because, like I said, they're probably drafting a guy, and if they're not interested in going Kirk Cousins, because it doesn't look like they're in a position to win, so Jacoby Brissett more fits that role of a guy who you're going to learn from him. You might not be in the best position to win, but he's going to fill in. He's going to teach your guys and at least show a little bit what the offense might look like. And then could see him going back to the Commanders. It would be kind of weird, but if they're drafting Drake May, I think Drake May might need to sit for a little bit. So if he has to sit, it could be behind Jacoby Brissett, and then he's familiar with that offense. So, or at least familiar with the guys around him. So that's why I have him there. But yeah, that's about it for the top guys. I did want to go over some of the other, the other notable quarterbacks, because it's interesting that these 6 guys are going to need a spot to go. Tannehill's going to have to go somewhere. Mac Jones is going to have to go somewhere. Zach Wilson, Tyrod Taylor, Sam Darnold, Marcus Mariota. I don't think Sam Darnold should go back to the 49ers. Mac Jones might just end up having to be a backup and have to revive his career later, kind of like Geno Smith did. Ryan Tannehill actually got rumored to the Steelers just because of his connection with Arthur Smith. I don't really see how that works. And I actually view Tyrod Taylor as kind of being a similar spot to Jacoby Brissett. So I think that could be another one where, however the dominoes fall, if somebody's looking for a bridge quarterback that's not really looking to win in the moment, I think you could. If the Giants were to draft one, I think you could go there. And then Marcus Mariota, had to have him on the list because he's still technically a big name. I think he's just going to be a good backup for whoever gets a mobile quarterback. And if they need a backup, kind of like a Tyler Huntley sort of role where, you got Lamar and you need somebody to fill in when he gets injured, and Tyler Huntley just fits the mold well. I think Marcus Mariota could fill in as a backup, but it doesn't look like he'll ever be a starter again. So that is all for today. That is where I think all the quarterbacks are going. Let me know if you think different, if there's somewhere else, or if I'm missing something. I think all my best fits are pretty accurate according to schemes and location and if they're a bridge quarterback and where they need to land. But let me know if you disagree anywhere down below in the comments. Like and subscribe as well. Thank you for watching and have a great day.